Hi, my name's Bill Gladden. I'm a wealth coach here at Money Matters. And a lot of my clients thought it might be beneficial for me to put together kind of a mini course on this cash flow system I teach, and to use more visual material, because if you're like me, I'm more of a visual person when it comes to understanding new concept. So as a result of that request, I put together this little course. Now I'm going to encourage you to watch these videos in order. It's kind of like furniture from IKEA. You definitely want to put it together in the order the instruction manual tells you, because if you don't, you're going to have a lot of parts left over. So again, I would watch each of these videos in order, and by the end of it, you should have a fully assembled cash flow system. Now this course is designed to address your income, flowing your income, and how you're doing it now versus another way you possibly can do it. I will have other courses that address debt recovery. It's awesome for debt recovery, but for this course, we're going to just focus on income for now. The first video is that old Bible story, David and Goliath. And the first part of this video is kind of a refresher course for all those that might not remember all the details of that story. Then, the second half of the presentation is going to show you an alternative viewpoint of the story based on new facts. And based on these new facts, if you're a free thinker, then you could consider which one you think is the most viable, which one makes the most sense. And that's kind of what we're going to do to try to open your mind, to see if you're a free thinker or not. Because in order to get this concept, you have to kind of let go of some old beliefs that you think you knew. Now, once you've heard all the facts, you can make up your own mind about how David, the underdog, defeated Goliath, the undefeatable warrior. We'll talk more about it later. Oh, by the way, just as a side note, I'll tell you a quick story about my 7th grade math teacher. I was having a terrible time with algebra. I just couldn't get it, so he held me after class one day and he says, Mr. Gladden, what do you think the problem is here? He says, and I gave some kind of BS answer, and he says, well, don't worry, Mr. Gladden, you're going to be fine. My class is a lot easier the third time you go through it. And he kind of looked back down at his paper and says, you can go now, Mr. Gladden. And I did, and I thought about what he said. And he was right. It only took me 2 times for that class, but I did get it. It was easier the second time. So what I'm encouraging you to do is watch these video presentations more than just once. Because with this new concept, sometimes it takes a couple times of watching it before it clicks. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, I guess we're ready. So go ahead, let's start at the beginning. David versus Goliath. My name's Bill Gladden, a wealth coach here at Money Matters. And one of the things I like to do for my clients is help them open their minds up to a new way of thinking, to become a free thinker. So I use this quote by Will Rogers. I use it through a lot of my video presentations. And the quote goes like this: it isn't what we know that gives us trouble. It's what we think we know that just ain't so. For a lot of people out there, it's very difficult to let go of something you believe to be true your whole life. And that's probably because you only know what you think you know. So what I want to do is go over that story about David and Goliath. Now, I know you're probably wondering, what's this have to do about cash flow and wealth coaching or my finances or retirement? What I want you to do is open up your mind. Ever since we were little kids in Sunday school, we've been taught how David defeated Goliath. But I want you to listen to the story again, and I want you to open your mind to a new possibility. After the second half of this story, I'm going to ask you an important question. So let's begin.
So I wanted to tell a story that really obsessed me when I was writing my new book. And it's a story of something that happened 3,000 years ago when the kingdom of Israel was in its infancy. The Philistines, who are the biggest of enemies of the kingdom of Israel, are living in the coastal plain. They're originally from Crete. They're a seafaring people. And they may start to make their way through one of the valleys of the Shephelah up into the mountains, because what they want to do is occupy the highland area right by Bethlehem and split the kingdom of Israel in two. And the kingdom of Israel, which is headed by King Saul, obviously catches wind of this, and Saul brings his army down from the mountains, and he confronts the Philistines in the valley of Elah, one of the most beautiful of the valleys of the Shephelah. And the Israelites dig in along the northern ridge, and the Philistines dig in along the southern ridge, and the two armies just sit there for weeks and stare at each other because they're deadlocked. Neither can attack the other, because to attack the other side, you've got to come down the mountain into the valley and then up the other side, and you're completely exposed. So finally, to break the deadlock, the Philistines send their mightiest warrior down into the valley floor, and he calls out and he says to the Israelites, "Send your mightiest warrior down, and we'll have this out, just the two of us." This was a tradition in ancient warfare called single combat. It was a way of settling disputes without incurring the bloodshed of a major battle. And the Philistine who's sent down, their mighty warrior, is a giant. He's 6'9". He's outfitted head to toe in this glittering bronze armor. And he's got a sword, and he's got a javelin, and he's got a spear. He is absolutely terrifying. And he's so terrifying that none of the Israelite soldiers want to fight him. It's a death wish, right? There's no way they think they can take him. And finally, the only person who will come forward is this young shepherd boy. And he goes up to Saul and he says, "I'll fight him." And Saul says, "You can't fight him. That's ridiculous. You're this kid. This is this mighty warrior." But the shepherd is adamant. He says, no, you don't understand. I have been defending my flock against lions and wolves for years. I think I can do it. And Saul has no choice. He's got no one else who's come forward. So he reaches down instead on the ground and picks up 5 stones and puts them in his shepherd's bag and starts to walk down the mountainside to meet the giant. And the giant sees this figure approaching and calls out, "Come to me so I can feed your flesh to the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the field," right? He issues this kind of taunt towards this person coming to fight him. And the shepherd draws closer and closer, and the giant sees that he's carrying a staff. That's all he's carrying, right? Instead of a weapon, just this shepherd's staff. And he says, he's insulted. "Am I a dog that you would come to me with sticks?" Right? And the shepherd boy takes one of his stones out of his pocket, puts it in his sling, and whirls it around and lets it fly, and it hits the giant right between the eyes, right here in his most vulnerable spot. And he falls down either dead or unconscious, and the shepherd boy runs up and takes his sword and cuts off his head. And the Philistines see this, and they turn and they just run. And of course, the name of the giant is Goliath, and the name of the shepherd boy is David. And the reason that story has obsessed me over the course of writing my book is that everything I thought I knew about that story turned out to be wrong.
Here's a quote from Tolstoy, which I think is pretty pertinent to our little story. "Free thinkers are those who are willing to use their minds without prejudice and without fearing to understand things that clash with their own customs, privileges, or beliefs. This state of mind is not common, but it is essential for right thinking. So do you consider yourself a free thinker? If you do, then let's continue with this story and see where it goes." I know what you're thinking. What does he mean wrong? Goliath was defeated by David because of the righteousness of God was on his side. What other explanation could there possibly be? What about the second part of that quote? It's what we think we know that just ain't so that gives us the trouble. I want you to open your mind and listen to his explanation. Don't worry, this is all going to make sense at the end.
Now, why do we call David an underdog? Well, we call him an underdog because he's a kid, little kid, and Goliath is this big, strong giant. We also call him an underdog because Goliath is an experienced warrior, and David is just a shepherd, right? But most importantly, we call him an underdog because all he has is that Goliath is outfitted with all of this modern weaponry, right? This glittering coat of armor and a sword and a javelin and a spear, and all David has is this sling. All David has is this sling, because that's the first mistake that we make. And a slinger is someone who has a leather pouch with 2 long cords attached to it. And they put a projectile, either a rock or a lead ball, inside the pouch, and they whirl it around like this, and they let one of the cords go, and the effect is to send the projectile forward towards its target. That sling is not a slingshot. It's not this, right? It's not a child's toy. It's in fact an incredibly devastating weapon. When David rolls it around like this, he's turning the sling around probably at 6 or 7 revolutions per second. And that means that when the rock is released, it's going forward really fast, probably 35 meters per second. The stopping power of the rock fired from David's sling, it's roughly equal to the stopping power of a 45 millimeter handgun, right? Accuracy, we know from historical records that slingers experienced slingers could hit and maim or even kill a target at distances of up to 200 yards. We know that slingers were capable of hitting birds in flight. They're incredibly accurate. When he lines up and fires that thing at Goliath, he has every intention and every expectation of being able to hit Goliath at his most vulnerable spot between his eyes. So what's Goliath? When he says, "Come to me that I might feed your flesh to the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the field," the key phrase is "come to me." We're going to fight hand to hand like this. Saul has the same expectation. David says, "I want to fight Goliath," and Saul tries to give him his armor because Saul is thinking, oh, when you say fight Goliath, you mean fight him in hand-to-hand combat, infantry on infantry. But David has absolutely no expectation. No, he's not going to fight him that way. Why would he? So here he is, this shepherd, experienced in the use of a devastating weapon, up against this lumbering giant, weighed down by 100 pounds of armor and these incredibly heavy weapons that are useful only in short-range combat. Goliath is a sitting duck. He doesn't have a chance, right? So why do we keep calling David an underdog, and why do we keep referring to his victory as improbable? It's a second piece of this that's important. It's not just that we misunderstand David and his choice of weaponry. It's also that we profoundly misunderstand Goliath. Goliath is not what he seems to be. There's all kinds of hints of this in the biblical text. Things that are, in retrospect, are quite puzzling and don't square with his image as this mighty warrior. So to begin with, the Bible says that Goliath is led onto the valley floor by an attendant. Now that is weird, right? Here is this mighty warrior challenging the Israelites to one-on-one combat. Why is he being led by the hand by some, young boy, presumably, to the point of combat? Secondly, the Bible story makes special note of how slowly Goliath moves. Another odd thing to say when you're describing the mightiest warrior known to man at that point, right? And then there's this whole weird thing about how long it takes Goliath to react to the sight of David. So David's coming down the mountain, and he's clearly not preparing for hand-to-hand combat, right? There is nothing about him that says, "I'm about to fight you like this." He's not even carrying a sword. Why does Goliath not react to that? It's as if he's oblivious to what's going on that day. And then there's that strange comment he makes to David. "Am I a dog that you should come to me with sticks?" Right? Sticks? David only has one stick. Well, it turns out that there's been a great deal of speculation within the medical community over the years about whether there's something fundamentally wrong with Goliath, an attempt to make sense of all of those apparent anomalies. Goliath is head and shoulders above all of his peers in that era. And usually when someone is that far out of the norm, there's an explanation for it. So the most common form of giantism is a condition called acromegaly. And acromegaly is caused by a benign tumor on your pituitary gland that causes an overproduction of human growth hormone. So the tallest person of all time was a guy named Robert Wadlow, who was still growing when he died at the age of 24, and he was 8'11". He had acromegaly. And acromegaly has a very distinct set of side effects associated with it, principally having to do with vision. The pituitary tumor, as it grows, often starts to compress the visual nerves. in your brain, with the result that people with acromegaly have either double vision or they are profoundly nearsighted. Right? So when people have started to speculate about what might have been wrong with Goliath, they've said, wait a minute, he looks and sounds an awful lot like someone who has acromegaly. And that would also explain so much of what was strange about his behavior that day, right? Why does he move so slowly and have to be escorted down into the valley floor by an attendant? Because he can't make his way on his own, right? Why is he so strangely oblivious to David that he doesn't understand that David's not going to fight him until the very last moment? Because he can't see him, right? When he says, "Come to me that I might feed your flesh to the birds of the heavens and the beasts of the field," the phrase "come to me" is a hint also of his vulnerability. Come to me because I can't see you, right? And then there's, am I a dog that you should come to me with sticks? He sees 2 sticks when David has only 1. So the Israelites up on the mountain ridge looking down on him thought he was this extraordinarily powerful foe. What they didn't understand was that the very thing that was the source of his apparent strength was also the source of his greatest weakness. And there is, I think, in that a very important lesson for all of us. Giants are not as strong and powerful as they seem. And sometimes the shepherd boy has a sling in his pocket. Thank you.
Interesting, isn't it? The real story about Goliath and David gives you a whole different take on it, doesn't it?
You know, the definition of a free thinker is being able to change your opinion based on new information. Well, here's some new information.
Well, here's my question to you. If I could give you some new information and teach you how your money can still make you money even while you're using the money, is that something that you think is worth pursuing? What if I could show you a way where you could do all this without having to pay any taxes on it? And how would you feel if you weren't dependent upon other financial institutions to tell you what to do or to charge you interest? Would you like taking back control over your life? I can show you how to do that and more. All you need to do is open your mind to a new way of thinking. All you have to do is bend over and pick up the rock and put it in your sling.
Today, there are a lot of Goliaths out there. At least that's what I call them. Goliaths like these big financial institutions, Wall Street, the IRS, big government. Instead of letting them make money off of our money, I want to show you how you can make money off of your money while you're using your money. That's the exciting thing here. And just like David, who everyone said he can't defeat Goliath, David knew that armed with the right knowledge, he could defeat Goliath no problem. So now it's time to arm yourself with knowledge. So that's what we're going to do.
The next video answers the questions, why don't banks charge us money for our checking accounts? And sometimes they even pay us a little bit for our savings account. Now, why do they do that? Is it because they're nice guys? Well, I think we all know the answer to that. So this next video might help you understand why they do what they do. Why? That's an interesting question. Not everybody likes that question. One example, banks. Why don't banks charge us for using them for our checking accounts? Back in my day, they'd give you a free toaster just for opening an account. Why would they do that? Because bankers are just nice and want us to do us a favor? They might pay 1% to open a savings account and park our money with them. But don't forget to read the fine print. And when it comes to free checking, we're not even parking our money that long. We put the money in there, then pull it out and pay for bills. Why doesn't that cost anything? Remember that free toaster back in the day? Well, today, we're the ones getting burnt. That 1% they're giving us is actually losing value each year when you factor in inflation from 2018, which is 2%, all the way up to probably 3.5% by 2020. In fact, our accounts are shrinking, not growing. Heck, we're thankful that banks at least pay us 1% for parking our money with them. but they take that same money and make 400% more than they pay us. That's another answer to the question, why? That's an interesting question. Not everybody likes that question. How does that make you feel? I remember back when I was a little boy, my dad took me to the bank and I got a passbook for a savings account. That's the way I was taught. Save 10% of my money, stick it in a savings account. That's all he knew. But like Will Rogers said, it isn't what we think we know that gives us trouble. It's what we think we know that just ain't so. Now that's the real problem. Are you getting tired of Uncle Sam shaking us down, taking more money each year? It's pretty obvious by our political representatives who they are truly serving, and it's not us. I was taught the golden rule meant do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But the golden rule for financial Goliaths is those that have the gold make the rules, well, because they know the rules. We've been told what to think when it comes to banks and our money. It's time to learn how to think about your money. I'm going to help you learn what those other guys don't want you to know. So let's get started. Now go on to the next step, the bank versus you. Okay, the next video is kind of a short video, but it does explain how banks make money off of your money, and it asks you a little question inside of it and see if you get it right. I didn't get it right the first time, but I think you'll find it really interesting. So go ahead and take a look at this next video to help understand at least part of how banks make money off of your money. Welcome to Money Matters. My name's Bill Gladden, and I'm a wealth coach here at Money Matters. I know a lot of you watching this consider yourselves a free thinker. But what if I told you it's not your beliefs that make you a free thinker? It's your ability to change your beliefs based on new information. That's what makes you a free thinker. And today I want to show you a new way of thinking about money. How money works for you, not against you. One of my favorite quotes is by Will Rogers. And what Will Rogers said is, "It isn't what we know that gets us in trouble. It's what we think we know that just ain't so." So today, let's figure out what we know and what we think we know that just ain't so. The first thing I want to talk about is the banks versus you. For this example, let's use $100. So you take your $100 and you give it to the bank, and the bank is going to pay you 1%. Now they're going to take your $100 and loan it out to another client or customer, and they're going to charge them 5%. Here's a question I want you to think about. How much more percentage gain did the bank make than you did? Now take your time, think about it. They're paying you 1% and they're loaning it out at 5%. Okay, if you're like most people, you probably said, they make 5 and they paid me 1, so they made 4% more than I did. Most people, that's the answer. But let's break it down. What's 1% of the $100 they're paying on you? I came up with $1. Okay, they take your $100 and loan it out at 5%. They make $5. So the bank makes $5. They paid you $1. So we'll subtract the $1 from the $5. And what that means, the bank made $4 more than you did. Well, $4 more than $1 is not 4%. That means the bank made 400% more than you did. How does that make you feel? Now, the next video in this course kind of talks about, is cash really king? I know that I was taught that if you want to buy something, you save your money, and once you've saved enough money, you go out and buy it. You don't borrow money to go buy a new lawnmower or to even buy a car. My dad said, save your money and go out and pay cash. Don't be paying interest to other people. If you can't save the money, then you don't need it. Now, I'm not talking about houses and big purchases, but I'm talking about everyday purchases. Save your money, pay cash. That's the way you do it. Cash is king. Or is it? Let's take a look at this example about buying a car, for example.
What you're about to learn today will hit right at the heart of Will Rogers' famous quote where he said, "The problem is isn't what you don't know. The problem is what you think you know that just ain't so. So let's imagine you're in the market today to make a large purchase, let's say an automobile. If you're not today, you will be sometime in the future. Let's suppose you've picked out your car, you've got the price negotiated, you've got money actually saved in the bank. The last couple of years you've saved money, you have $30,000 that you're going to use to purchase this car. You go into the bank today, it's a nice day, you're going to get a cashier's check, take it to the auto dealer to pay cash for the car. And while you're at that bank, the banker gives you an offer. The banker says, take your $30,000 and let's put it into a CD paying 4% for the next 4 years. And because you do that, we'll give you a loan for $30,000, and it's a loan. We're going to charge you 6% interest. Would you take that offer? When I first was asked that question, I said, of course not. I'd be losing 2%. Why would I do that? I'd rather pay cash. Well, when you run the math, you'll find that 4% over 4 years on a $30,000 deposit will actually earn you $5,196 of interest. The loan, paying 6% over 4 years, you'll pay $3,818 of interest. The difference is a positive $1,378 in your pocket by taking that offer. So you can earn 4%, pay 6% interest, and still come out ahead. You see, the problem isn't what we didn't know, it's what we thought we know that just isn't so. And that's today's Money Matters lesson.
This next video is called A Tale of Two Banks. It's the bank that your grandpa and your great-grandpa and even your dad probably used their whole life. My dad, at least until 25 years ago, when he founded this new bank. We'll call it the Family Bank, or the Bank of You. So let's take a look at the tale of two banks.
This is a very short story. It's called A Tale of Two Banks, a True Story. This is the first bank in our story. Same bank my grandpa used and even my dad used, well, at least up to 25 years ago. With this story, we're just going to deposit $50 in our checking account or savings account just to keep it safe. Whether you park your money in a bank or you stuff it in a mattress, it has about the same effect. Your money really doesn't make you any money, it's just a place to store your money. After you give the bank your money, you decide you're going to go on home, take care of some errands, pay some bills. Later that next morning, something unforeseen came up and you had to go back to the bank and take out that money you put in. And so the bank says, no problem. They'll just give you back the $50 you gave them yesterday. Besides, we've been taught that all the banks really do is they just hold our money and give it back to us when we want it. They're not really designed to make us money. At least that's what we've been taught our whole life. We've been taught what to think, not how to think when it comes to banks. When I was a little boy, I thought I wanted to be a magician. One of my favorite tricks was my dad got me this little machine that could turn $1 into $20. I was just fascinated with that. And I asked my dad, hey Dad, do you think there's a real machine that can turn money into more money immediately? Do you think that really exists? One thing I love about my dad is that he was a free thinker. He never told me I can't do something. He always told me, find a way to make it happen. I think at that moment the seed was planted in my dad's brain. And 25 years ago, my dad founded the Bank of You. Will Rogers was a humorist back in the 30s, and my grandpa loved him. He loved the fact that he just put complicated things in plain talk so regular people could understand it, and he didn't pull any punches. Here's one of my favorite quotes. It isn't what we know that gives us trouble, it's what we think we know that just ain't so. My dad always said if it sounds too good to be true, then we need to dig a little deeper. The second bank in our story is the one my dad started 25 years ago. It's called the Bank of You. It works a little differently than that old bank. We'll use the same scenarios we did last time, except this time we're using the Bank of You. So when we put our $50 in, what we can do is we could go back later that day and pull not $50 out, but we could pull $100 out immediately. Let me repeat that. Not $50 out, but we could pull $100 out immediately. That's the magic of the Bank of You. Now, the old bank didn't do that, did it? Now, how can the Bank of You be able to do that? That's a pretty good question.
The videos that will follow will explain the mechanics behind how the bank and you can actually produce those kind of returns guaranteed. Our little story was based in real facts, and it's not a fairy tale, and you and your family can live happily ever after. So if you think it sounds too good to be true, then it's time to dig a little deeper. What my dad did for me, isn't that something you'd want to do for your family? So now the next step is up to you. All right, so here we are. We're in the middle of it right now. We're getting down to the meat and potatoes of how the systems work, how these other banks flow in their money through these filters to generate cash-free dividends and guaranteed interest returns. This one will kind of get more into the nitty-gritty of the thing. So I encourage you to watch this a couple times too, because this is where the rubber meets the road, as they say. Welcome to Money Matters. My name's Bill Gladden, and I'm a wealth coach here at Money Matters. I know a lot of you watching this consider yourselves a free thinker. But what if I told you it's not your beliefs that make you a free thinker? It's your ability to change your beliefs based on new information. That's what makes you a free thinker. And today I want to show you a new way of thinking about money. How money works for you, not against you. Okay, what we're going to do right now is kind of talk about a concept that your dad Joe's getting ready to do. So I'm going to ask you a question. How much of your income do you actually put in the bank each month? Well, you get your paycheck. What do you do with it? Well, you put it in the bank. How much of it? Well, you put 100% of it in there. Then once you put it in there in your checking account, what do you do with it? Well, you write checks out of it and pay bills. Okay, so that money that you took out of your account to pay the bills, what happened to the money? Where'd it go? Well, you paid the bills, but the money that was in the account is gone. Actually, there's a better way to do that. One of the real desirable things about this cash flow system I'm about to talk about, institutions like banks or people like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, they've been using this system for years. What all the other banks are doing right now, they're filtering their money, all the deposits you give them, through a thing called bank-owned life insurance. And so what they're doing is taking that money and filtering it through a mutual life insurance company. But as a mutual life insurance company, you're a shareholder. And of course, as a shareholder, you get paid dividends and also a guaranteed rate of return of 4%. And this particular type of mutual life insurance is called non-direct recognition, which I'll explain here in just a second. Right now in the bank you're using, you put $1,000 in, well, you can pull $1,000 out. That's it. But in our bank, what's going to happen, you put $1,000 in, and you could immediately pull out $1,200. Now, which bank would you rather put your money in? I'll show you this in a future video, and it's based on an actual case study. Well, remember I was talking about those dividends and 4% return you're making? Well, that non-direct recognition means that even though you pulled the money out and used it to pay bills, the life insurance company didn't see it happen. It didn't recognize it, so therefore it's still paying those dividends and those internal rate of return of 4% as if the money is still sitting there while you're using the money. I probably just blew your mind. And this is one of the reasons that banks and Wall Street and other financial advisors don't want people to know about this. Because people would stop storing their money in banks or paying fees to financial advisors where their investments are at risk. It's not to their best interest that you know about this. By the way, all of this money that generates is tax-free. It's for sure Uncle Sam's not going to tell you about it. Let's go ahead and stop there for right now. That's a lot of information, so let's just let it soak in. And in fact, I suggest go back and watch this video again because it's a lot of new information you never heard of before. But the good news is, all of it's true. Keep watching these videos in order because knowledge is power, and with this power is going to be able to allow you the financial freedom you need to help not only you, but your family. So if you have any questions, just give me a call. That's it for now, but we'll talk again. Now the next video in this series is an actual case I worked on, and we're going to call this guy the average Joe. And so the numbers are real. Now, you can move the decimal points one to the left, one to the right, depending on your financial situation. But the math is the same, whether or not it's $12,000, $50,000, $5,000. The math is the same. So here's the story of the average Joe and how it actually worked for his family. For this example, here's the case. We have our average American will be 62 years old. We'll just call him Joe. And Joe makes about $2,500 a month. Now, Joe has a daughter who's 38 years old, and he has a son that's 37. Now, for this example, Joe's going to be the owner of this policy, and the daughter's going to be the insured. And as the owner, Joe has access to all the cash value inside this policy. And then when Joe passes away, his daughter becomes the owner. This is called the Bank of You. And for this example, we got a couple categories: money moved, money available for later. So in years 1 through 3, we're just going to reposition some money that Joe has from an annuity or 401k into this policy, or the Bank of You. He actually has $60,000 of tax-free money he can access. But here's what's going to happen. In year 4, the premium will fall to $15,000 annually from that point forward. But we're going to switch from annual premiums to a monthly premium of only $1,250. Now, the monthly income is going to be used to pay the premiums, and we're going to filter it through the Bank of You. And here's the categories. This is money that's going to be deposited into Joe's checking account, money pulled out, net gain, and annual returns. So in year 4, the policy will deposit $1,133 into his checking account. The next day, they'll withdraw $1,250, the net gain of about 6.5%, or $83 a month. And annually, that comes to around $9,996 more money that he has, which is tax-free. In year 10, the deposit's going to be $1,600, and of course, they'll withdraw the premium out again of $1,250. And in year 10, the net gain is 28%, or this totals $350 a month. Annually, that comes to a total of $4,200. This goes up every year. So we're going into year 15. In year 15, $2,000 is deposited into the checking account, and they withdraw their $1,250. That's a 6% gain, or $750 a month. And for the year, that's $9,000. Well, let's fast forward to year 25, and Joe passes away. And now his daughter is going to be the new owner of the Bank of You. So that year, into her checking account, they're going to deposit $2,500. The next day, they'll pull out that usual $1,250. So in year 25, the daughter is now making 100% net gain. That means that she made $1,250 that month, tax-free. And that comes to a total for the year of $15,000 starting in year 25. So let's kind of take stock of what happened here. We'll do a running total of the Bank of You up to year 25. So in year 25, the money that funded the account, meaning the premiums that were taken out, totaled $426,000. However, the money that was used out of the bank, they deposited back in the checking account, was $560,000. So that means in year 25, we came out $134,000 tax-free money ahead. And let's say the daughter dies in 47 years. To the insured, meaning the daughter, her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren would receive a little over $640,000 as a death benefit. They'll just subtract the loans from the death benefit. This is because money that is withdrawn as loans are non-taxable. Any outstanding loans or unpaid interest are simply deducted from the death benefit. And in fact, the loan value are all guaranteed by the net cash value inside the policy. So in the whole history of this bank, Joe has never had to pay any money. The insured, meaning the daughter, never had to pay a penny for this policy. Only pays them tax-free money. That's the main thing. All the money it generated was tax-free, and a death benefit of over $650,000 for the beneficiaries of the insured. And so this is why we came up with the concept of the Bank of You. It's a much better way to filter your money than doing the old way of giving it to the other banks to make all this money off of you. Wouldn't you agree? By the way, we haven't forgotten about Joe's son. Once the Bank of You becomes efficient, then Joe's going to take a policy out on his son and do the same thing. Between the two policies, Joe will be able to filter all of his income through his own bank, and now his income's making him money while he's spending the income. I didn't want you to think we forgot about Joe's son. No, we're keeping it in the family. You know, most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do their retirement. Why don't you do this? Give me a call or email me and we can talk about it. This has just been a brief overview, so here's my contact information. Hope to hear from you. Now, this last video kind of helps explains the different kinds of life insurance, term versus universal versus whole life. So anyway, I just thought it might be helpful to kind of throw this in at the end, in case you get confused like a lot of people do about the different kinds of insurance and how they're funded and how they work and things along that line. Life insurance. What's the first thing that comes into your mind when you think about life insurance? For most people, it's the death benefit. When it comes to the death benefit, most people think, what's the most death benefit can I get for the least amount of premium? Well, even though you are the richest guy in the cemetery, that money was meant for your beneficiaries. It wasn't meant for you to use while you were alive. I thought we should just take a moment and let's look at the different kinds of life insurance and how it can work for you.
There are really only two kinds of life insurance: temporary coverage, which is called term insurance, and permanent insurance. Both term and permanent life insurance comes in various different shapes and flavors to satisfy different needs. Term life insurance is, by definition, temporary insurance. It's designed to provide coverage for a limited period of time, typically 10, 20, or 30 years. Term policies are simple and extremely inexpensive. In most cases, your cost each year is guaranteed to remain level for whatever the term is, again, typically 10, 20, or 30 years. After the term is over, make sure you're sitting down when you receive your premium notice, because your rates are going to jump up dramatically, sometimes by a factor of as much as 10 or more. Permanent life insurance is designed to provide coverage for as long as you live. If your needs are long-term, like estate planning or final expenses, or if you just want to leave a bigger legacy no matter when you die, permanent insurance is probably the way to go. There are lots of different kinds of permanent insurance, but the two primary categories are whole life and universal life. Unlike term insurance, permanent insurance policies can also build cash surrender values, which can be accessed at any time for any reason. You can set up your premiums to remain level for life, guaranteed. You won't have to worry about premiums going up when you get older and forcing you to drop the policy. Nor will you have to worry about being healthy enough in the future to requalify or replace the coverage. Universal life insurance, one kind of permanent life insurance, offers a certain amount of built-in flexibility. You have the ability to change your premiums and death benefits to keep pace with changes in your life. Whole life insurance is what I refer to as the Rolls-Royce of life insurance. Over time, these policies develop significant cash values that are guaranteed and can be accessed at any time. Regardless of what happens in the economy, each year the cash values grow, guaranteed. My whole life policy, for example, I bought 25 years ago. I pay $4,635 each year. Right now, it has a cash surrender value of $217,000. Better than a lot of my other investments for sure. In the end, the best kind of life insurance to own is the kind that's in force on the day you die. If your policy is not in force on the day you die, you bought the wrong kind.
Well, congratulations. You made it through my little primitive videos to explain this cash flow system. Now, everybody's situation is just a little bit different. That's why I like to sit down on an individual basis and talk about your situation and how this can apply for you and your family. Now, I know you've heard things like, if you keep doing what you've always been doing, then you're pretty much going to keep getting the same results. So, for those free thinkers out there, I'll be talking to you soon. So now that you've been exposed to this new information, you should be motivated to take action and do something about your current situation. The next step is yours.